Joining us now from Washington, former Assistant Commerce Secretary for Manufacturing and Services in the International Trade Administration during the Obama administration, Nicole Lamb-Hale, and former National Economic Council Deputy Director in the Trump administration, Clete Willems. He was the lead U.S. negotiator at multilateral summits and left the administration in the spring. Thank you both for joining us. Clete, if I start with you, what was it a month or two ago that led to the softening in tone, the worsening in tone in these trade negotiations, and has anything changed on that since then?
So what happened about a month and a half ago was that the U.S. and China thought they were close to a deal, and part of that deal was that China needed to change its laws to implement changes that would stop forced technology transfer from happening, that would better protect intellectual property rights. And after China's negotiating team consulted with their president, China suddenly signaled to the United States it didn't have the flexibility to make those commitments. And those are a critical part of the deal for the United States. And that's why you saw things break down. And since that time, what I've been hearing is that positions have remained pretty hard. That, the hardliners in China are still resisting some of this stuff. But hopefully tomorrow, President Xi and President Trump can unlock this and get things back on the right footing.
Clete, how important is Huawei as a bargaining chip for both sides?
Well, President Xi has signaled in the conditions that the Chinese government is signaling, he's signaled that that's an important one and that the United States needs to, as they put it, get rid of the ban on Huawei. Now, I do think that there may be some flexibility for the U.S. on this issue. President Trump has signaled that. But if President Xi comes in and he's unequivocal and says the U.S. can't take any action against Huawei, I don't think that's going to be very productive because the U.S. has identified this as a national security threat.
Nicole, I'm just wondering how watching this whole trade war, G20 play out is for you, having come from the Obama administration where it was very different. It was cooperation, it was multilateralism, it was getting partners on board and confronting China, but in a very, very different way, and certainly not bringing them to the table like this. What do you make of it all?
Well, thank you, Sarah. And, our clients at the Duff and Phelps Institute have been very concerned about the market uncertainty that this trade war has created. And I think that at the end of the day, it's really, and as Clete mentioned, one of the sticking points is changing the laws, the domestic laws, both at the federal level in China and at the provincial and local levels. And I think that that's a hard pill for the Chinese to swallow. And I think that what the Obama administration attempted to do, and I think for a long-term resolution of the structural issues that we see with China, I think we need to return to this strategy, is multilateralism. Efforts like the TPP, which would have created an environment where China would have felt more compelled to make some of the changes that we're seeking from a structural standpoint. So I think at the end of the day, it's just really important that market certainty is restored and that these tariffs are delayed and hopefully negotiations are resumed very shortly.
Clete, Nicole brought up the market certainty. How much, given your experience with the president on these issues, how much pain do you think he's willing to tolerate for the market, but maybe more importantly right now from the economy, which is starting to show some cracks ahead of an election in terms of making a trade deal?
Well, I think the U.S. economy is still strong, and certainly the U.S. economy is strong as compared with China. And I think that our relative economic strength is the reason why the president has some leeway to take this on. I think the U.S. is willing to accept a little bit of short-term pain for some long-term gain. So I don't see that being an immediate factor. I would like to just touch on this question of multilateralism, though, that you raised, and I think it's an important issue. It is in the U.S. interest to work with allies. There's no question about that. And we've tried that in the Trump administration, continuing some of the efforts of the Obama administration. The problem has been that a lot of our allies haven't shown sufficient ambition, haven't been really willing to have the tough conversations with China, haven't been willing to apply leverage to China in the way that the U.S. has. And so the U.S. was really forced here to be a leader, to show leadership, and to take this on in a different way. That said, I hope where we land here is that the U.S. gets a bilateral deal with China that deals with some of these problems and then ultimately brings it into a multilateral forum where everyone can work together and pressure China to make the changes. So again, multilateralism is good and will be necessary, I think, to make this deal sustainable over the long run, but I don't think they ever would have gotten a deal if they went that route first.